Captain Marcus Wilson wasn't expecting to be denied entry to his own cockpit on Flight 1297 from Atlanta to San Francisco. But there he was, standing just feet from the door, his credentials already shown twice. Uniform crisp with 4 gold stripes shining. Yet a flight attendant named Diane Reynolds was blocking him, insisting on protocols that made no sense. "I need to see some ID," she said, arms crossed, voice sharp, as passengers and crew watched, tension thick in the air. Marcus, with 23 years and over 18,000 flight hours under his belt, kept his voice calm, but inside, frustration simmered. How was this happening? Let me back up a second. Marcus's day started like any other, waking early in his Atlanta suburb, careful not to wake his wife Serena or their 2 kids, Maya and Elijah. Early mornings were nothing new. They'd grown into the family rhythm. As he adjusted his tie that morning, a photo caught his eye, a younger Marcus standing proudly by his first commercial aircraft, his father James Wilson's arm draped on his shoulder. James never got to fly himself. Dreams clipped by the harsh realities of being a black man in 1960s America, but he lived to see his son break through barriers he only imagined. "You fly for both of us now," his father had said. Those words were a compass in every cockpit. By 6:15 a.m., Marcus was at the airport, nodding greetings to familiar faces, mentally preparing for a long day ahead. Atlanta to San Francisco, then onward to Seattle. Paired with his first officer, Michael Chun, a pilot he'd flown with before, they shared light moments about Michael's young daughter already telling me how to fly the plane, he joked. It was camaraderie like this Marcus cherished a brotherhood based on skill and trust, not skin color. But he knew well enough that outside the cockpit, things could be different. The pre-flight briefing went smoothly, though Marcus caught Diane's slight hesitation when he introduced himself. It was the kind of look he'd seen too often: surprise, doubt, something colder. But the team moved on, emergency procedures reviewed, service expectations set. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Boarding had started, and Marcus headed to the cockpit, only to find Diane physically blocking the door. "I need to see some ID," she repeated, this time with a finality that froze the room. Marcus called Franklin Pierce, the airline COO, a man he'd known for 15 years. The call was direct, explained he was being denied access to his own cockpit, despite showing all credentials, and that Diane was insisting on further verification. Pierce promised to look into it immediately. Less than 30 seconds later, Diane's phone rang. After a tense moment, she stepped aside, allowing Marcus to enter. But just as he settled in, a different flight attendant appeared, reporting that Diane refused to fly with Marcus, backed by 2 others. Crew conflict meant potential delays or cancellations, a nightmare in airline operations. Marcus asked to speak with Diane. She appeared flushed. "I'm responsible for the cabin," she said, "and I need to be confident in the flight deck. I've never seen you before, and your credentials could be fake." Marcus, with professional calm but firm tone, assured her his credentials were verified, that he'd been captain for 14 years. He challenged whether she and her team were prepared to do their jobs or if replacements were needed. Diane relented, under protest, warning the incident would be reported. Michael whispered, "What the hell was that about?" But Marcus focused on departure. The flight itself was smooth, weather clear, turbulence light, as predicted, yet the atmosphere on board was thick with tension. Crew communications were clipped, passengers whispered. Notice the cold professionalism. Marcus's reputation had been built on fostering teamwork and calm, not this brittle standoff. Michael asked if this kind of thing happened regularly. Marcus shook his head. "Not exactly like this, but variations more than you'd expect." Michael was stunned. "But you have your ID, your uniform. How could anyone question that?" Marcus smiled sadly. "Exactly. When was the last time you were asked for additional ID after showing your pilot's credentials?" Michael had no answer. Landing in San Francisco was textbook, and Marcus gave the usual warm, professional announcement, no hint of the morning's chaos. But unknown to him, Jason Martinez, a first-class passenger and tech executive, had been recording the entire confrontation. What started as a security concern became an undeniable video of racial discrimination, a black captain denied access to his cockpit. By the time passengers deplaned, the video was already viral on social media. Marcus stayed seated in the cockpit, quietly making notes and sending a message to Pierce. Then Jason approached him, saying, "What happened this morning was unacceptable. I fly this route twice a month, never seen anything like that." Marcus kept professional, but knew the storm was just beginning. Later, at the airline's downtown offices, Marcus met with top executives. On a large screen, the video played again, clear, undeniable. The headline read, "Discrimination at 30,000 feet. The COO, General Counsel, and others watched in silence." Franklin Pierce admitted, "We got it wrong yesterday." Marcus demanded more than corporate apologies, a clear acknowledgement of discrimination, a full review of past incidents, and concrete changes in training and culture. The airline promised to remove Diane and the supporting crew from service pending investigation. But Marcus knew pending could mean anything from serious action to a slap on the wrist once the media attention faded. Then the bombshell, Diane had reportedly said, "He doesn't look like any captain I've ever flown with." The implication was clear racism, plain and simple. Marcus refused to sign a statement that glossed over this, demanding honesty. The days that followed turned Marcus into the reluctant center of a national conversation about racial bias in aviation. Statistics revealed only 3% of commercial pilots in the U.S. were black, though black Americans made up over 13% of the population. Stories poured in from other black pilots, sharing their own experiences of doubt, suspicion, and discrimination. With Serena's encouragement, Marcus agreed to a televised interview. "It's not just about me," he said. "It's about every pilot who looks like me, and every kid who might never pursue this career because they don't see themselves here." He spoke honestly about the subtle and not-so-subtle challenges being questioned by passengers, overlooked by crew, doubted at every turn. When asked about the airline firing the crew, Marcus said it was a start but not enough. "We need real, meaningful change, not just PR statements." He invited viewers to listen to the countless untold stories, to understand this wasn't isolated but systemic. The response was overwhelming. Messages of support flooded in, especially from parents of black children inspired by Marcus's courage. One father from Chicago wrote, "My son said, 'Dad, he's just like us. That means I can too. Thank you for being the role model my son needed.'" That night, Marcus talked with Elijah, honest about the unfairness but hopeful for progress. "Are you coming home soon, Dad?" Elijah asked. "Tomorrow," Marcus promised. "And then we'll talk more about all this." Elijah admitted some classmates didn't get why it was such a big deal, and Marcus saw his chance to teach, just as he'd been taught. 3 months later, Marcus stood before a packed auditorium at the airline's headquarters, chairing a newly formed diversity and inclusion task force. The data was clear. 78% of minority pilots reported bias or discrimination. But Marcus shared hope the industry was listening, starting to change. He laid out recommendations: better training, structural changes in hiring and promotion, and real accountability. Among the crowd was Asa Johnson, a young black pilot cadet. She thanked Marcus, nearly quit, doubting if she belonged. Now, she was determined to make captain someday and show others it's possible. Marcus smiled, reminding her, "The most important thing isn't just getting there yourself, it's holding the door open for those behind you." Later, his father, James, now in his 80s, leaned on his cane, telling Marcus, "You did good, son. Real good." At a family dinner, Marcus toasted to his father, to Serena, and to his children, who would fly higher than he ever could. Elijah, who'd just applied to the Air Force Academy, said quietly, "When I say I want to be a pilot like you, people don't just think about flying anymore, they think about standing up for what's right." Marcus nodded. That's a different kind of legacy. The confrontation that started at a cockpit door had sparked a movement forcing an industry to face uncomfortable truths and begin changing for the better. The sky, he believed, belonged to everyone willing to reach for it. As he looked out over the city lights, Marcus knew the journey wasn't over. There would be more battles, more minds to change. But sometimes, just sometimes, standing firm could make a difference, one that rippled far beyond a single flight or even a single industry. "You fly for both of us now," his father had said. And now, Marcus was flying for so many more. What do you think? How do we confront systemic bias in industries we believe are merit-based? Share your thoughts below because this conversation is far from over.